Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care. Coming up on this episode of Heartland Highways, we'll meet Neoga, Illinois scroll saw artist Rick Wallace and learn firsthand how he creates his intricate pieces.
Then we'll revisit Mark and Mindy Gardener at Floodplain Forge, where they specialize in artistic and functional one-of-a-kind metalwork in steel, wrought iron, and copper.
And finally, we'll head to Shelbyville, Illinois to meet Roy Gaunt. He makes display tractors out of sewing machines.
Stay tuned, that's next on Heartland Highways.
Welcome back to another edition of Heartland Highways.
Today we're back at the Down to Fine Arts Center here on Eastern's campus.
Now, inspired artists walk these halls every day, so it makes the perfect location to talk about today's show.
Our first adventure took us to Neoga, Illinois to meet woodcarver Rick Wallace. Rick's intricate creations start with a little scroll saw and a lot of imagination. Rick Wallace of Neoga, Illinois is used to working with his hands. As a machinist, he uses them all day to make the precise parts required for his job. So for him, a hands-on hobby wasn't much of a stretch.
Scroll saw art, it's basically taking a sheet of plywood or any type of board or material and putting a pattern on it and cutting it out. Throughout the years when I was in like wood shop and metal and all the different classes back in high school and junior high, I learned a lot of stuff there. And then my father taught me a lot of stuff too. He had a scroll saw and it sat in the garage for years and years, and then one day I thought, well, I'll try it out, and he showed me just a little bit and then it took off after that. So I'm basically self-taught.
Rick first taught himself basic scroll saw cutout techniques, but has moved on to a wide variety of woodworking projects.
You've got your basic scroll saw cutout, which that's where you cut your pattern out, and there you have it. And then you've got fretwork, and that's just intricate cuts to form one picture. Intarsia, it just goes on and on. Yeah, I've been more experimenting with the intarsia art.
And what is intarsia art?
It's segmented cutouts where you're using individual boards to form one piece of art. You design your pattern, and then after you've got your pattern designed, you write the pattern out on the board or draw the pattern out on the board, and then you individually cut each piece out. And after you've got the pieces all cut out, then you piece it all together and doing all your shaping. And then you piece it together and you stain it, and it takes a lot of time.
Rick's pieces vary in how long they take to create. Some take only 5 hours, while others can take up to 50 or more depending on the difficulty and number of cuts. Rick hand draws some of his patterns and orders others from magazines and the internet. He can also make portraits in the wood from photographs.
I've done pictures for people at work and sold them, and they'd give me a really good picture. You know, it has to be a professional picture mostly, or like a school picture or something like that that's professionally done. And then I can turn that into like a one-bit image, and your darker areas of the one-bit image is what's going to be dark stained, and the rest of it will be just left the regular wood color. That's how, see, your eyes draw right to the black, you know, in the picture. So, and it just captivates you.
And using an artist's eye is what helps Rick shape the portrait and intarsia cutouts and gets them to fit together just right.
See, each piece is individually shaped, and then, you know, you look at the diagram and then it tells you, I mean, it don't tell you exactly how much to really shape it, but that's kind of something you do on your own. You gotta pick one piece up and shape it to fit. And sometimes the cuts come together all right if it's cutting the same piece of board, but then when you have to merge the other pieces together, you're cutting and shaping. So that way they fit tightly, you know.
And shaping is actually Rick's favorite part of the creation process.
To sculpt the wood, and I use a drum sander to get the curves and the shapes in the wood, and it's just, that's my favorite part of it is the shaping, and then watching it turn out. It's just incredible.
Rick has made over 300 pieces so far. Some he has given as gifts, others he has sold, but he's still managed to keep a few for himself. He generally works on one piece at a time, with the exception of one specific time of year.
Most of the time I'm doing the one piece and that's it, and then after I get it done I start on another one. Except around Christmas time, and then it's like Santa's workshop out there, you know.
Rick's favorite subjects include birds and celebrities. More recently, he has begun to experiment with wood dyes, stains, and paint. He also uses a variety of woods to give each piece a unique touch.
I usually use a lot of walnut, oak, maple, some cherry, you know, your basic woods that you can easily get around here. One of these days I'd like to use exotic hardwoods and stuff like that, like cocoboa, rosewood, stuff like that, just stuff that wood that you would get from other countries that you can't get around here. And they have a different grain pattern and different colors. There's a lot of beautiful type of colors that you can get with those wood.
For Rick, the more challenging the project, the more intrigue he finds in it.
Some things can be really easy, maybe 4 or 5 different cuts and you're done, and then there's some that are hundreds of cuts and stuff. But I go for the pieces that have hundreds of cuts because they're more of a challenge. There's not a better feeling in the world than to create something, you know, even for everybody else to see too.
Rick is currently working on more ways to get more people to see his work. He takes suggestions and posts photos on his Facebook page, and also displays a few pieces at an art gallery in Sullivan, Illinois.
I'd like to start a website where I could actually sell my stuff, you know, and get it out there so people can see it more.
In the meantime, Rick plans to continue doing his work for friends and family. After all, they all feel the same way about his work.
They love my work and everything, and my kids, you know, they ask me to do stuff for them too, you know, and I've done stuff like that in the past too for gifts, and you know, it's something, and they respect it. They don't like tear it up or anything like that, you know. It's just endless, the things you can do with a scroll saw.
Want more information on the story you've just seen? Well, then head to our website at weiu.net/hh. Check out our online episode gallery for past and present shows. We now head to Farmer City, Illinois, where we meet a husband and wife blacksmith team. Mark and Mindy Gardener create both artistic and functional pieces of work, all under the roof of their historic blacksmith shop.
This building has really a fantastic history as far as blacksmithing is concerned. There'd been a shop here as far back as we've gone since 1892, and it was owned by the Gould brothers.
And today, Mark and Mindy Gardener are continuing that history with their own style of metalwork. Located just off the downtown district in Farmer City, Illinois, the Gardeners happily spend their time heating, shaping, pounding, and forming ordinary metal into extraordinary art. They started working out of their home, but when they encountered a problem with their forge, they came to this building for the solution.
And Mark knew that this had been a blacksmith shop, and he asked the people at K&S Furniture if they would let us come in here and see how the chimneys were built and how the forges were built, and they said yeah. And we came in here on an incredibly cold day, and we're looking at everything. I was like, wow, this is really neat. This is a neat building. We went home, kind of played around with the chimney we had. Later on, Mark asked them, you know, is there any chance they would consider selling this building? And they said, well, yeah, we would sell it, but we need a warehouse for all of our furniture. So I was talking with Dick Maxwell at the bank and telling him the situation. He said, well, why don't you buy the building across the street, fix it up for them, and swap buildings? And basically, that's what we did.
That was in 1998, and since then, Mark and Mindy have been working regularly out of what they now call Floodplain Forge. Inside, the building is like taking a step back to an earlier time of a busy blacksmith shop with forges fired with coal and heavy belt-driven machinery. When this shop closed in the 70s, all of the tools and machines were sold, but the Gardeners have amassed a sizable collection of presses and power hammers that now fill up the shop.
The first batch we got was, we went to an auction at Metamora near Peoria and bought a line shaft. They had it advertised in the newspaper. And we went for the line shaft and came home with a 1918 South Bend metal lathe, camelback drill press, and a grinder, and a line shaft, and several other items.
Well, some people have come in here and said, you know, you can have this anvil, or I'll sell you this anvil as long as it always stays here. So some people actually care about the equipment and just want it to have a good home and not be put into a scrapyard and destroyed.
Factory production of metal goods made blacksmiths obsolete, but now there's a resurgence in artistic metalwork and blacksmithing as an art form. Floodplain Forge is now a creative workspace for Mark and Mindy, who each have their own style and specialty.
Mark's more practical and more functional. I think he does more of what you would think of as blacksmithing, gates, railings, chandeliers, spoons, knives, forks, hinges. I do something just totally unusual. It's called chasing, and it's usually used for creating jewelry, but I'm doing it on steel. And like I said, I got interested from seeing what was done probably around 1920 in that era.
Chasing is a process that moves metal, whereas something like engraving actually removes it. To make her creations, Mindy first starts with a drawing, then uses a foot-powered treadle hammer to create the design. This husband and wife team often pools their talents on projects, like this sizable arch built for Sugar Grove Cemetery.
And it took a year to make. It was a huge project. It was probably, what, between 24 and 26 feet tall.
It's over 26 feet tall.
And
24 feet wide.
yeah, so it was huge. And there was a lot of working together on that, a lot of designing together, drawing it out on the floor because we didn't have anywhere else to draw it. You know, where you guys are was all a big drawing of this cemetery arch, of pieces of it. It was an interesting project.
They also like to collaborate with another Farmer City artist, glassblower Todd Manicki. Their work resulted in a beautiful 6-foot-high floor lamp. In 2002, Mindy was chosen to create an ornament for the official White House Christmas tree, an honor given to one artist from each state.
That year, the theme was all creatures great and small. And the tree was decorated with different birds indigenous to the state that the artist was from. So I did indigo bunting, sitting on a purple coneflower with a yellow coneflower in the back and some prairie grass, kind of to go along with being the prairie state. And the bunting is a bird that is indigenous to Illinois. We did get invited to a reception at the White House, and we did go, and that was an awesome experience. Yeah, and it now is in the permanent collection of the, I guess, permanent ornament collection of the White House.
There's no doubt that metalwork can be labor-intensive, a continual learning process where the results are not always instantaneous.
You never stop learning. I've been blacksmithing for 38 years, and I learn something new every time I pick up a hammer. It just takes a very long time to learn it.
I think you have to look at everything you make as a learning experience.
Work like this takes time and patience, and for Mark and Mindy, support from one another and a good attitude is essential.
That's my side of the shop.
The term artistic temperament comes to mind. Most of the time we get along very well. Occasionally we're both quite headstrong and we both have our ideas of how something should be, and those don't always jive, but most of the time we get along very well. And it's fun.
Over in Shelbyville, Illinois, we met Roy Gaunt. Roy makes display tractors out of sewing machines and says deciding which sewing machine will be which tractor is kind of like putting together a puzzle. You just have to have a little bit of vision. Roy Gaunt of Shelbyville, Illinois has spent most of his life around agriculture and farming. So it was only natural that when he was looking for something to do a few years ago, he flipped through a farming magazine and was instantly attracted to an article about a man who makes display tractors from sewing machines.
I looked at that and, well, I could do that. So I made one and it looked pretty good, so I made some more, and then I got to finding, people would want them, and found more sewing machines, so I just kept at it.
Now, 50 tractors later, Roy is well immersed in the hobby.
First you tear the sewing machine clear apart, and then I wash and clean them up and decide what tractor they're good for. Some work better for a certain brand of tractors rather than another brand. Then I start putting it back together, using all the parts that I can, like needle shafts and the covers. Access covers, I try to use them. The bobbin plate I use to make a platform on the rear end if I can. Then I drill the holes for the axle shafts. Then they're painted. The tires, the front wheels are normally a Nerdle tire that I get from a Nerdle supplier. And the rear wheels are 6-inch lawnmower wheels. And most of the time I got to repaint them because they're always white. And then you just put everything together and hope it works.
Roy uses just about any kind of sewing machine to make his tractors, but says the simple ones work best.
It works better if they don't have a lot of doodads and adjustments and stuff on them. But old Singers work good, that old type do. The newer ones work good, like the tractors you have here. The newer sewing machines, but most of them don't have a lot of the adjustments and extra things on them.
Roy gets the sewing machines he uses from auctions, yard sales, and his customers.
A lot of them come from people that have a sewing machine. Well, can you make this into a certain type tractor? So probably a third to a half of them come from that source. And they want the same machine back. It's been in their families for years, or they have a special attachment to it, so they want use my sewing machine.
So, how does Roy decide which sewing machine should be used for each tractor? Well, a little imagination, he says, is all you need.
You look at it and see what it looks like. I know what the tractors look like, and like that white tractor has a distinctive front end, and the international tractor that's back there wouldn't look very good with a white paint job, so the front end's not right. So you try to match it, you got to use your imagination, but it kind of, you look at it and think about it, it comes out.
Roy has made everything from John Deere to Case to Oliver tractors and beyond. It takes him about 2 weeks to get one finished, and he usually gets about $70 for one. But for Roy, it's not about the money.
Well, I think the best part's when people come to pick them up. You get some stories behind them, and plus, it's something that I can pick up and do, and if I want to drop it, I can leave it. And, I don't lose anything. I can come back and pick it up where I left off. And, if I spend 2 hours a day on it, you can do quite a bit. So, it's just something different to do. It's related to agriculture, which is what I grew up in. So, plus I like tractors and so forth. So, it's just kind of a hobby, I guess.
Roy's hobby keeps him busy. So busy, in fact, that he barely has time to make and keep any of the tractors for himself.
I've got one that's a junkyard dog. And it's a machine that didn't look like it would fit anything. So I just got together a half a dozen cans of paint and just sprayed it any which way, put a crooked exhaust pipe on it. And I'd like to make a 70 for myself, which is tractor that I upset when I was almost 21. But other than that, I just do it for other people.
Those people that Roy makes the tractors for generally have one thing in common.
They're mostly ag-related people, and most of them are looking for something. Well, what do you buy your husband after you've been married to him 40 years or 50 or whatever? And this is something that's different, especially if they still farming or involved with farming or have been. So, it's just kind of a natural progression. They're not an actual tractor, but put your imagination to work, they come out pretty good.
Roy says he'll continue to make the tractors for anyone who wants one, but parting with them, well, it isn't always such sweet sorrow.
Most of the time when I get one made, I just soon keep it, but that's kind of impractical, so. And I like, people really enjoy them.
Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Heartland Highways.
We'll see you next week with a whole new set of adventures. Is there a place we should see or a person we should meet? Well, tell us about it. Heartland Highways covers within a 200-mile radius of our home base here in Charleston, Illinois. You can email us at heartlandhighways@weiu.net. Call us at 1-877-727-9348 or send us a letter to 600 Lincoln Avenue, Charleston, Illinois 61920. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Heartland Highways is made possible in part by Sarah Bush Lincoln Health System, dedicated to providing care for all and creating healthy communities in East Central Illinois, offering general and specialty medicine, including a regional cancer center, heart and lung center, orthopedics and sports medicine, a center for interventional pain, and a full complement of diagnostic and rehabilitative services. Sarah Bush Lincoln, trusted, compassionate care.
Roy says that deciding blah blah blah. Na, 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 na. Get the hook, I'm almost done.
Thanks for joining us this week for Heartland Highways. Today
Today it's my line. Our first adventure took us to Neoga, Illinois to meet woodcarver Rick Wallace. Rick's intricate creations start with a little bit of imagination and a lot of a scroll saw, not really.
a little bit of,
A lot of imagination.
okay. How's it?
I think I was going.
I was still zooming out, so it's a nice resolve.
Okay.
I think I was holding my thumb like this, but it's okay.
Let's do one more. Let's do one more because it's pretty short. So, thank you so much. Okay, now it's your turn to screw up. 1, 2, 3.